Daily trading recap for this Thursday, the 18th of November, 2021. Despite a little bit of a choppy day here, looked like it was selling off pretty hard right away in the morning session, but recovered nicely for the afternoon and now sitting above where we opened and where we closed as of yesterday. So good potential signs that we maybe tap another new all-time high or just continue to stalemate maybe around this 470 level for a few more days at least. Market internals on the day for dollar volume as of 18 minutes after the close here. NASDAQ $268 billion volume, NYSE $267 billion volume, OTC's $2.6 billion volume, just for reference. For me, looking back, one trade for me on the day, one short trade. As of right now, still, I am just handcuffing myself and kind of indefinitely banning myself from going long. We need to regroup. I need to totally redefine how I'm looking at longs. I've just taken far too many paper cuts on that side, and something's got to change. So taking a little breather from those just to come at them with a totally different perspective and see if start to just throw random crazy ideas at it, because I got to do something different than what I'm doing now. But besides the point, one trade for me on the day on LGVN to the short side, which, looking back, probably wasn't, of course, now looking back in hindsight, was not the best short play whatsoever. But even in pre-market too, just was not an ideal short setup chart in pre, just that feeling, that intuition that I got from it. But I still led myself to believe that it kind of was, and I was playing a little bit of a top picking type of trade on that one, but we'll get more into that with a breakdown trade specifically here. Right now, let's get into it. I got nothing else for the introduction, so absolutely bonkers market hours the rest of the day after this morning session here, closing 135% in the green, but just so Willy Wonka W, up and down, just mind-numbing to be a part of trying to predict which way it would go. If you're a long trying to buy any of this consolidation here, or if you're a short trying to play a top on any of these at any point, whether in the morning session or later in the afternoon here. Just brutal for trying to pick apart this chart piece by piece. Man, tough to be a part of. But anyway, breaking down from the morning session so we can kind of get rid of that other side of the chart that throws off the viewing of the chart itself here. Little pre-market spike. It's super low float on this bad boy. It was an American biotech, 2 million floater, I believe. Yeah, 2.7 million floater I'm showing on scans here. They had news at 8 a.m. this morning of the FDA approving one of their rare pediatric disease designations to infant heart conditions. That's the news I'm reading here. So decent news from the FDA, but again, the same thing just does not matter whatsoever. This is a crappy American biotech company. Not that much crazy of a history, but history does show a little bit of one and dones at least. Obviously, far significant more volume today than it's had ever in the past year. But again, it's an American biotech. It's a losing money biotech. Sketchy low floater. And factoring in that same thing too, again, it's crazy low float, but it wasn't ridiculously expensive borrows, which gives me another indication to say, okay, maybe it's not so crazily shorted or reserved shares that it would get super squeezy like this today, but you can't ever really trust that as a full indicator as the borrow fees from any broker. So just overall takeaways from this one was just another great learning lesson that shorting is not a 100% strategy, just like anything, just like any and everything in this market environment in day trading that I'm trying to go more away from the long side, thinking like I'm seeing so many of these charts just fade the whole rest of the day, and just like shorting is awesome and all these nice short traders. But again, another great reminder that nothing is ever 100%. You can't just sit and hold and sit and add and just have no risk level whatsoever and just continue to go on the thesis that, it's up too much. This is a sketchy, crappy company. It's got to come down at some point. Respect your stop levels, establish a risk point, and trade the trade that is there. And shorting especially too is going to continue to push me in that space of it's all about timing. I may be on the right track to understand that these are crappy companies. They're going to fail eventually, which is correct. But it's just a matter, is it today? Is it 10 months from now? Is it next week? It's just a matter of timing that style of play and understanding the individual chart itself, what it wants to do, and just the overall market theme to say like, oh yeah, these ones over and over again, they will just repeatedly die off, or over and over again, they will continue to hold very nice squeezy green days like this one and just chop around like this. And so just learning from those sentiments with each and every one of these charts. But for my individual trade on this one, before I mention ISUN after this one, which was the beautiful, that is pristine morning dump trade that I'll get into in a little bit, fell into the watching of this one with really nothing else hitting my scanners. Of course, not going long. I just focusing on the short side, saying, hey, what's up? What's potential to have a nice drop off today? No, I knew that I didn't want to play this one anywhere near morning volatility, or just try and play with that emotional hot potato of first 15 minutes to say, gosh, I let it do what it wants to do. It's just going to it's going to pick a side one way or another. If it has a little fade off, okay, potentially watch for the dip and rip, failure to break above VWAP, and then short there as a maybe failed attempt at that point. So again, going through different potential scenarios for what this one wanted to do. Keeping the chart that came to mind for me on this one was, as I looked it up, CYTO on the 12th was the thesis for me. Of course, these were far different individual tickers themselves, but how they were trading as a intraday theme of, okay, we're getting crazy pre-market spikes, or we're getting moves right out of the open here. As the chart was developing during market hours, to say, okay, I remember this one that I wanted to be short this one, and I kind of got flushed away from shorting it because of just how it was holding and the weird trading of it here. But anyway, that this trade was the trade that I was looking for, that to say, okay, it did have this little squeeziness. It was still within that first 15 minutes of the morning volatility, morning craziness, but there was an exhaustion point within that first 15. There was a short trade within that time frame, and even though it kind of looked scary, even as a short, trying to find an entry here, even though it was kind of looking like it was pressing your back against the wall and that it still could rip at some point, that was a definite little sign there that you're breaking new lows after 2, 3, 4 minutes after that new high of day perk, big green candle, big volume candle as well too. It's continuing to just push and push and push and die on those lows. VWAP especially here was an inflection point for this trade specifically, and then just broke through to the bottom side of there. And nice little 10%, even if you're getting anywhere from this $3 level to 2.7, nice little 10% trade on that one. So that was kind of, as market hours were developing on this one for today, for LGVN, that was the thesis that, God, I know I should give it just a little bit more time. Just let it do what it wants to do. The more and more time you give it, the less retailer amateurs are going to step in to kind of push and crazy the thing. A lot less trains you're going to have to step in the way from. I'm not trying to be a hero with this trade. I think is especially what I'm trying to say with that, or what the thesis was, that do not try to pick a top. Don't try to be so finicky and so precise with the entries and executions. I'm trying to play a trend, a little backside pullback after morning craziness and morning volatility. If it's going against me, then I'm obviously in at the wrong time. And like I mentioned earlier, shorting is all about timing. I can't be that while I'm short. So very great lesson for me on this one of the thesis for the entry. I'm saying thesis a lot. But we get another new push here. We get, one initial great spike to new high of day. Another great live stream as well too. By the way, mentioning from Monaco, and Tui was kind of in the background as well, but they were looking at this one to the long side that had a really nice squeeze, big volume. Was this the biggest volume candle and for the morning session? It was the biggest volume candle for the day. That's pretty surprising for that initial push there. Let's get this perspective again. So then another little 3-minute consolidation, break to new highs of days again with relatively the same amount of volume break. Continues to just have a little red candle pullback after that green candle, new high of day spike. Then these next two candles were just kind of a little bit of weirdness for me, that you get another new high of day break, but it's just not on that much crazy volume. Whereas now, like I compare it to the red candle following it, that it wasn't so much crazy selling pressure after that new high of day that maybe would have brought in me as a short either. So it was, I could look at both sides of the coin to say with this one of, I was using this indicator to say, okay, we just passed a new high of day. Why did it not need that much volume or have that much volume, and why isn't it continuing? Whereas to say that the same thing of, well, obviously a better sign to get short this one, that the trend is obviously reversed, would be more volume pushing this new high of day attempt downward, and then just playing the snowball effect of all the longs trying to get out, knowing that the trend, at least for the morning session, has reversed. So the thesis was for me at that one of, okay, now it's going to this next minute candle here, and it's still kind of holding, but it's looking a little bit weaker. It's just kind of bobbing on this little bottom area here. Pouncing upon, I was ready, I already had shares reserved, the 300 shares reserved, ready to pounce upon a new break for this little trend low. It's been establishing this consolidation-ish attempt for 4 minutes. If it starts to pull back off of that more, I'm thinking VWAP is not far behind it, and certainly we could just get another little quick pullback. Maybe even it breaks down to $4 if there's enough volume to tank that thing back to around this little $4, of course, that $4 range where it started for the first 4 minutes of market open. As a covering point for that short. But within that, it recovered extremely quickly after my entry, and factor that in for the future too, that I knew that and recognized that, and going forward in the future to say, okay, well, my trade thesis wasn't carrying alongside to say that this thing should have done that quickly, and the fact that it did that makes me a little bit less convicted that the trade is actually going to happen. So as the price action is continuing to press against closer and closer to new high of day, I'm just getting that feeling that, okay, we could just absolutely catapult here. I do not want to be a part of that massive slippage. I'm going to take off while I can. So got a nice 465, I believe. Oh yeah, it's 465 exit, which was a very good exit for new high of daybreak that I think maybe got out another few stragglers who were not as smart as I was to get out a little bit earlier than that. But that was another that I wrote here too, that we get to this 950 point, 9:50 Eastern Standard Time, that it again kind of does the same thing where another 3 minutes go by, that it's consolidating around that new high of day, and then you get a break down below that to say, okay, this could be another reversal here. This could be the start of, okay, let's roll away, let's peel away some of that morning craziness, morning volatility. Let's tap VWAP, see where we're at with other bidders and sellers, maybe bigger players who are looking around that VWAP point as a point of inflection. So that was a mental short for me, again, in and out of this thing. Okay, 950. If I wasn't in that first trade with that first little indicator, I probably would have been short here. And I would have had a little bit more of, God, this perspective on this one gets so ruined because of that crazy price action. I would have had a little bit nicer of a sit and maybe had a little bit more conviction with this big red candle and big volume. But that in the same light, so many different factors, so many different times of big volume that is dumping and breaking new lows, but it's not continuing. It's showing and teasing like, oh yeah, I'm low here, come in and short me. But in reality, then you get 2-3 minutes later, huge slap to the upside, spanking those short sellers who kind of probably had the same idea that I did with that thesis of looking to play this little reversal, the backside of the morning volatility, pairing alongside that little CYTO trade potentially. And just getting slapped into a halt within 8:15 here. That would have been 10:15 Eastern Standard Time. Daylight savings still screws me up. And yeah, just continue to rip faces and just go Willy Wonka crazy all over the place. So yeah, it wasn't even like it was long bias. Like there was awesome long opportunities in this one that were just squeezing super stupid shorts. Like me in this case, it was just continually pressing for some reason. There wasn't any awesome, great consolidation points as along. You could call this huge volume candle as if you're so on it and watching it hard as along. You can call some of these points maybe as a long bias position entry point, but it was just continuing to press against those highs of days and just stair stepping on the backs of all the early shorts in this one, just like me, who got in a little bit too early. So crazy price action. And like I mentioned in the introduction a little bit as well, it just wasn't, I knew in the back of my head it wasn't an A+. It wasn't something that I had felt I have conviction in from the past of, oh, okay, this type of pre-market action I feel ends up fading in market hours. I didn't have that fully. But in the same light too, I know most of the market sentiment on these ones is they're going to end up fading and dying. Even sometimes, regardless of the super crazy low floatiness, they kind of end up doing the same thing over and over again. But this is a great reminder as well too today that you always got to respect that low floater craziness and establish your risk level and stick to it. Cut losses quickly as they're there. Otherwise, I would have been sitting from 4 or 5, taking just under what would have been a probably 100% loss, a full account drawdown on this one. That would have been pretty insane if I was just baggling this one crazy. Yeah, but that is trading. That was LGVN on the day, the only trade for me. And then, gosh, I have to mention ISUN because this was my boy. This is my morning dump, bread and butter pattern trade that I wasn't a part of because I just haven't felt that they've been working out the greatest, or I haven't seen that indicator come out as a probable hit rate is what I look for to get convicted to take these again, starting at the pullback to VWAP after that initial spike, whereas this one was an awesome hit, a $12 spike initially, failed to ever, respected that high, failed to ever break beyond that, continued to buff around VWAP and looked like it was getting bought up with these bottom wiki candles here, but then eventually just ended up get to 8:46 a.m. here Eastern time. And that was the final dump and just continued to bleed and die, full death all day. And why I just go away from it or just kind of get shied away from it, where it's just like, okay, well, it gets the market open. And I'm saying, man, do I really want to chase it here as a short and actually get short here at this point? Do I think it has all the type of bleedingness in it to fully die off back to where the closing price from yesterday? Do I think it could return there today? Is that really that much meat on the bone? Am I just playing with fire at this point, especially with how far it is from VWAP when it gets the market open? But this is a great reminder as well, adding to the learning P&L for the day, that you get this 3-minute little perk here. That's a freaking high of the day at 944, and that is the easiest sit as a short ever from there. There's no volume to continue this thing, and no long is going to try and touch this thing. If they are, they're the same type of stupid that the shorts are stupid, trying to keep shorting LGVN as it continues to rip higher and higher and higher. They're just like, oh, I'm buying the dip here on ISUN, right? Oh, it's a great dip. It's a panic. I remember hearing somebody on the live stream today with Monaco and Tui that they're looking for the dip buy on ISUN. Like, where's the panic? Where's the profit opportunity on this one? But that's the type of mentality that some people take, and those are the ones that are going to continue to push this thing down and down and just bleed it dry. That makes it such an easy sit as a short, and what a pièce de résistance that reaffirms in me that characteristic that even though sometimes it does feel like it's chasing on the short side and, shoulda, coulda, woulda even been short this one. I continue to use that phrase, but I really don't think that in essence. But trying to go through, in hindsight, how I could have handled this potentially better, or trying to live up to perfection, knowing that I'll never be there, but to say, if I could have played this chart perfectly today, where would I have been? Well, I would have traded it as a morning dump, gotten short right in this consolidation, just sat the whole day, covered right at, that would be 12, right at lunchtime, Eastern time. But then the same thing too of what I was actually in the perspective of to do as I was sitting here, looking at market open. Do I still really want to get short here at this point? I was going to let it do what it wants to do. Thought I was going to find maybe a little bit of a base here under $10 and then maybe climb back to VWAP a little bit, and then maybe I can get a little short position there as it fails around VWAP and play the fade from there, but then just keeps dying off. And not that it's a FOMO situation that, I at least got to start in a starter position again, clawing myself into that same situation that I was with the longs, but understanding what is happening with these charts and understanding how they work and how they function and what is the overall message from all of them, that what percentage of these are doing this same type of pattern, just straight up, pretty much straight back down. What percentage of them are doing the LGVNs, that are the fake outs, that are going absolutely berserk in the other direction. So a little bit of data collection more we need to continue to expand upon our shortingness in this market environment as of right now. And again, the review of the charts and just it is scientific, and it is so not in the same light. It is just about that feeling, that intuition that can get you so screwed over at times, but then again, it can save you buttloads of money at other times. So continue to just grow in experience that way, things that you can't necessarily read from a book or learn from a podcast, just getting in that action and that knowledge every single day as well. So that is really all that I had. Still making a 20-minute video, out of those two charts. Really liking it is a little bit bigger of a percentage of a P&L loss for me on the scale, But compared to my position size on that one, certainly not anything to bat an eye at. I'm glad this is the type of trading that I want to be doing, of respecting myself to say, okay, man, it's slapping against me. I think the probability of this trade is now far less than what I thought it was initially getting into the trade. I'm going to adjust and I'm going to get out on the fly. So, and I think a little bit bigger position size, getting over that $1,000 mark, gets me in that mindset a little bit better. Whereas where I was with the longs of, it's just a little, educational trade. It's a $200 position size. I'll take like 2 shares. It's not going to be crazy big, but then it ends up being like a $10 loss. It ends up being like a $20 loss, and I can convince myself that it doesn't really matter. But then that just becomes so sloppy, and the percentage, even percentage-wise on P&L, and the P&L itself is just kind of like, what are you doing? You're just doing this over and over again, and I'm not really learning from it. It's really not that big of a cut for me to make a change on it, but adding those up over and over and over again, it just kind of becomes the straw that broke the camel's back. It's just, when am I going to learn from those longs, and what is educational about those if I'm just continually losing money? That's just like going to college and paying buttloads of money for a piece of paper, right? That's just stupidity. That's what the same thing I'm doing here in the stock market. So getting away from that as much as I can, I think, is going to be the key, and continuing to slam those shorts as they are there. Chase when I can chase, and stay away when I can stay away. That is the key to all of it. So I sincerely thank you guys for watching. We will catch you guys on the next one.